Aesop's Fable, The Dog and His Reflection. A dog, to whom the butcher had thrown a bone, was hurrying home with his prize as fast as he could go. As he crossed a narrow footbridge, he happened to look down and saw himself reflected in the quiet water, as if in a mirror. But the greedy dog thought he saw a real dog carrying a bone much bigger than his own. If he had stopped to think, he may have known better. But instead of thinking, he dropped his bone and sprang at the dog in the river, only to find himself swimming for dear life to reach the shore. At last, he managed to scramble out. As he stood sadly thinking about the good bone he had lost, he realized what a stupid dog he had been. The moral of the story, according to Aesop, is it's foolish to be greedy. Alrighty, top of the day to everybody. Good morning. Hello. So we got some fun things we're going to talk about today. I figured we'd start with an Aesop fable. For anybody who isn't familiar with Aesop's fable, I did a little bit of digging once to find out, like, who is this Aesop person? And found different accounts. Some say it was a real person. Some say these are just a collection of stories, and the name of Aesop was kind of put on them. But as a child, I loved them so much. I used to read them over and over and over again. I was just fascinated with them. That and Greek mythology. And it's funny because as a kid, I knew they were just stories, but for the way my mind worked even then, I just love relativity of the connection of multiple things. So I can hear a story that's completely fiction and find so much value in it. In fact, when I used to read fantasy books, I used to love it because with a book, unlike a movie, you have a much more in-depth perspective of the perspectives of all of the characters. And I thought that even with fiction stories, it gave me a wonderful opportunity to get a greater grasp of the human condition, what it's like to have multiple people. Oh, sorry, I heard a noise. To get the grasp of multiple people all interacting with one another. And especially books where you got to see, someone who was supposed to be good, and then someone else was supposed to be bad, but then you see it from the other person's point of view. And in many ways, I think I've been able to learn more about the human condition in reading fantasy books, seeing in the heads of multiple characters, than I think I ever gained from hearing the perspective of just one individual man talking about psychology and things like that. Oh, they're dumping the trash. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I can hear it because I have a gate on my recording. So the gate basically minimizes background noise. That's why it sounds kind of funny. Sometimes I had to play around with it. My first episode with the Be in Love series, I had the gate turned up too high. That's why it kind of sounds like it cuts out, or you can hear me breathe and it's like, it sounds kind of weird. Anywho, we're going into the dog and his reflection. So a dog to whom a butcher had thrown, I already read it at the beginning, right? But it says a dog, I'll break it down in little pieces. A dog to whom the butcher had thrown a bone was hurrying home. Long story short, there's a dog. He's got a bone in his mouth. Okay, he has what he wants. He's running around, all happy, being a dog, the bone in his mouth, and he comes upon a body of water. And when he comes upon the body of water, he looks in the water, and as if in a mirror, sees his reflection. But the foolish dog didn't realize what he was looking at was a reflection, but instead saw it as another dog. And based on the way the reflection was sent back to him, he said, oh man, the bone in that reflection's mouth is bigger than the bone I have. So he dropped his bone. This is a little different than the one I read before. Anyways, so the one I had read before is he basically snapped at the other dog and trying to get the other dog's bone. The bone that he had was lost in the river. But in this one, it's very similar. He jumps in the water to get the other dog's bone, and then he almost drowns. And says, what a stupid dog he's been. Very foolish to be greedy. we hear about the word greedy, right? So if a man needs an apple and they eat an apple, are they greedy? Right? One would probably say no. Right? What do we usually look at as greedy? Greedy is when someone, it's almost like it's this desire to obtain more, but then you have to like, oh, more, right? And you have to ask yourself, well, what is it about? What drives that behavior? And I would propose that it's lack, fear. I must pile up more and more. And based on the old paradigms of thinking, I'm debating in my head if I want to go deep with this yet, right? Well, let's just say your world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted, projected reflection of your conception of yourself. You're more powerful than you think you are. And yesterday we talked about, mind, body, spirit, right? You're always part of a trinity, and it goes in so many different directions. First it's 3, then it's 6, then it's 9, so on and so forth. Tesla alluded to some things like that, but we discussed how you are past, present, and future, right? And you are your source, the creator, the created, and of course, the frequency in between, right? So you're the energy creator and the vibration and the frequency of your subjective interpretation and perspective of what you are in those two things. And it's really fascinating because just like you have past, present, future. But the weird thing is, I want to look up something. The weird thing is that the one that seems the realest and the most solid will actually be the frequency. And we kind of talked about that, right? Like even if you can climb up, right? And you can climb down, you never actually fully embody up. Up will always be a part of you, right? And if you continue to climb down, even though you're climbing down, you are never actually a full embodiment of down. If you move left, you are, left is a part of you, right? But you're never only always left. Just like you're never only always right. Move north, same thing. North will be a part of you, but you can't be just called straight north. Can't be called just straight south. Can't be called just straight east. Can't be called just straight west. You'll always remain in the center. And the same thing with our perspective of time. All right? You can move from the past to the future, seemingly. But no matter what, anytime you look at yourself, you are always in the center between past and future. Or what has been presented and possibility. And the reason you always feel like you're in this now moment is because you're always the frequency in between the two. And which means that you're a part of those two things. And those two things are a part of you. But it's what makes you the frequency is the meshing of those two things. It's a yin yang. Or the Mandorla I talked about in prior episodes. When you see the Jesus fish on people's bumper sticker, I think this is what Yeshua embodied, was this understanding of being the Trinity. So it's so if you Google Mandorla, you're going to see it's two overlapping circles. And it's kind of funny because the shape also kind of looks like an eye. So when you see the little Jesus fish and the little tail of the fish, that's actually showing the two circles kind of curling over each other. So it's a geometric symbol. And when you take the above circle and you take the below circle and they overlap each other, right? It's almost like you're kind of making an 8, but where they overlap, that little space in the middle, when you see pictures, it's the Christ in there. I'll show the Christ in there, the heart, right? And it's about realizing, well, what are you the center of? and being able to sit in the center, and it's not just, believe it or not, it actually goes deeper than that. So you'd have those two above and below circles, but then you'd also have two other circles that are horizontal to make another shape. I've drawn it out before. It's about kind of understanding that, like all the components that make you you, and then realizing that you're at the center of them and balancing them all. Right? But so many people, they're like, oh, I need to be up. And for me to be up, I can't be down. And so there's two masters and they kind of war against each other. So anyways, it's where the centering kind of comes in. And so right now in this present moment, you're a frequency of past and future. And you can kind of choose. You can be lopsided, right? You can over identify with the past and be run by your subjective consciousness and your unconscious mind. Or you could be overly identified with the future and kind of have your head, or possibility, right? So another way to look at it, instead of past and future, you could look at it like what has been presented up until now, what is manifest up until now, and possibility of manifestation. And if you lean too heavily into possibility of manifestation, you can have your head in the clouds and have trouble actually manifesting things, because you need to bring the two into harmony and balance so that you have a proper channel and flow and everything works out. Same thing. That's like, and that's kind of how you see even with our political system, right? People say, oh, the two-party system's a problem. Not necessarily a problem, right? I mean, it's subjective anyways, but there's been a major shift if anybody's been kind of paying attention, where you see a lot more people ending up in the middle. You hear more and more people referring to themselves as independent, which is actually a beautiful thing, because we're moving away from that hyper swinging to the left or the right, right? And finding that balance, right? But so to find the true balance, you have to realize that you're all of them, which is it's a kind of a multidimensional thinking. Anyway, so the dog and his reflection. Like I've said before, the outer world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted, projected reflection of your I am's conception of yourself. And your I am, according to my present understanding, is the creator. How does it create? It creates by being you. And, well, what is you? Well, what is you is a really complex string of matrices combined together with value, belief, paradigm. Oh, so many of them. It's a whole bunch of them. What do you think makes, if you look at a gorilla, you look at a mouse, if you go down far enough into what makes them what they are, atoms and things like that, it's the same material that makes them, combining itself in unique ways, unique matrices, to create cells that behave in certain ways, that create particular organs, mannerisms, brains, all that stuff, right? Have fur. But if you really dive down and from a material perspective, at the core, it's the same substance. And, as we talked about in the other spaces, the other podcast episodes, we see the visible world. But I'd hope that if anybody's been listening to all of these, there may be some further expansion in your understanding that there has to be an invisible. And that it's the visible. If you look at the law of inversion, if the material world is visible, right, it's defined, it's limited to a certain degree, right, then it's in, the vibration, the manifestation, then the thing, and it's the created, Mother Earth, the mater, the matrix, and it's the created, well, then there must be a creator, and the creator would embody characteristics that would be the inversion of that which it's created, which would mean the more like unto the creator something becomes, the less limited it is, the less needy it is, and the less defined it is, right? Just how it works. And so that would mean that the source, the closer you get to the source, the less defined it is. the more non-corporeal it is. All the way up to the kingdom of heaven is as small as a mustard seed, smallest of all seeds, right? Another way of saying it's like it's the smallest possible thing you could ever see, but it's the generator of everything. When falling on tilled soil will grow into a bird that will shelter eat the birds in heaven. It's kind of like an idea, right? An idea can change the world and has changed the world, right? But not just like human ideas for inventions. Ideas have changed the world simply by an idea of a planet, an idea of rocks, an idea of water. Like it was an idea, formed itself into a collection of more defined thoughts, became beliefs of something. Those beliefs became knowings, and those knowings eventually manifested, right? So it's the realm of ideas that creates this material plane that we see in front of us. And, when we get to the point where we really start to transcend Jesus said, in the world you'll find tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have transcended the world, right? And with that being said, it's my opinion that he went to that center point, the point where he could realize that, yes, I am the being that's being expressed in this material plane, but I am also connected to my Father, which is the non-corporeal plane. So it's like a soul, which, if the material plane is dense form and the spiritual plane is the more deeper you go into the realm of spirit, the less corporeal it is, the less form it is. You'd have to imagine that in between that, the soul will have form, but maybe not as tangible and dense and defined and limited and needy as the represented material form of what we call our bodies and this earth, right? So it's kind of like this soul. It still has some kind of form, but the form is like thoughts and ideas and beliefs, and that to me is the etheric. That's the ether. That's where Tesla said that he got his ideas from. He said he got it from the Akash. It's the ethereal plane. That's where I spend a lot of my time, is kind of in that realm of ideas. But what I've learned more and more is that, hey, this material plane has a function. It allows us to really embody and embrace and experience our ideas and thoughts on a really fascinating and beautiful level, right? But I think that the key is knowing that the more inwards you go to that non-corporeal spiritual part of yourself, the more like unto the creator you become or behave as. And this is where it can be tricky. If your world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted projected reflection of your conception of yourself, and your conception of yourself also is a trinity, because you can't have a conception about yourself of what you believe that you are being and be a being without being in a world that acts as a support system, juxtaposition, and relative inversion for you to have relationship with. So it's a three-part thing. So to have a conception of yourself, you must also have a conception of the world that you reside in, and an understanding of your relationship or responsibility to that world and that world's relationship and responsibility to you, even if it's broken out into parts of more refined perspectives of the individual things in that outer world and how they all have unique relationship to you and relativity to you, right? So if they be as Gandhi said, to be the change you want to see in the world. If that is true, that your world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted, projected reflection of your conception of yourself, relying on the conception of three things: what you believe the outer world is, what you believe you are, and what you believe your relationship and responsibility and ability to respond is within those three parts, right? And what this means is that you want to change your outer world, and to the degree that you want to change your outer world, you have to change your conception of yourself. But in order to change your conception of yourself, you would have to transcend your conception of yourself. Meaning, if you thought all that you were was your conception of yourself, a flat tire can't fix itself. Right? And that's where you transcend your conception of yourself. You don't kill it. You transcend it. You expand your awareness of it. Say, oh yeah, I'm being this body, I'm being this personality. This is my creation. And I, the frequency, part of the Trinity, sit in between and am a part of and have as a part of me my creation, the personality, body, world, and my creator, source of my being. That's what, and where that part of you resides is in the realm of thought. So you can live in that realm of thought, transcending the body. And you know, it'll give you a level of neutrality too, because why would it give you a level of neutrality? Well, it gives you a level of neutrality because the more you embody that understanding as being the soul in between those two parameters, you realize that anything that you judge is ultimately judging a part of you. So the you that's thinking, that's being your character, by being your character in that moment, is, as crazy as it sounds, also manifesting the entire world around it. We talked about this before, the multidimensional perspectives, that it's, you can glimpse it or get a grasp of it. At least it's a challenging thing to see. But if you can at least entertain the notion of it, that when you're dealing with multidimensional, which we would have to live in multidimensions, like a 2-dimensional world still lives in a 3-dimensional world, and a 3-dimensional world still lives in a 4-dimensional world, and a 4-dimensional world still lives in a 5-dimensional world. It's this moving, pulsating thing wherein you can be the center of your universe and have everybody else be a character of you. And I could also be the center of my universe and everybody else is a character of me. But we'd have to transcend the me. My personality is not the one creating the entire world. I am creating the personality, which is getting an entire world to reflect back that personality that I've created, as are you. So ultimately, the more we grow in our understanding, we realize that, and you transcend the personality, you don't really become more divine. You just remember your divinity by knowing thyself. Kind of crazy, right? So when we're talking about the dog, right? So here you are, a manifestor, creating your whole world, and then you forget that, and you're running around, you have whatever you need, the powers within you already, and then you see a reflection out in the world, and you forget the relationship between you and that outer world, that you're responsible for the manifestation of it with the ideas and thoughts that your I am is holding. Now, some people identify so much with the body personality matrix that if they are, a lot of times they'll actually have to feel like they're reaching out to the divine powers above them, their guides, angels, things like that, because they don't realize that those are parts of themselves. So because they're overly identifying with being the person, it's going to feel like the person is calling out to something above itself, to some other higher beings. Which, because everything's possible, it's crazy, you could actually create them. Just like people can create demons and all that. But ultimately, they're in your mind. Your real mind, your etheric mind, which is connected to all minds. And there's a big soup of the etheric. So, it's kind of the moral of this. So the greed happens when people have a fear that there's not some great, like the Bible says, greater is he within you than he was of the world. Right? It's getting closer to that. And I think the way it works is once you get to the center, or I can get to the center, I kind of move in and out of the peripheral in the center sometimes, as I clear out my old patterns of belief of the opposite of this, you know. But even when I'm there, I still rely on calling in the intelligent energy love that just seems to always transcend me, right? You climb as high as you want, you're never going to be up, right? So no matter how much you have created, no matter how much of the creator you embody, you can always become more in line with what you're creating, right? And I think it's why Jesus said, of my own self I do nothing, but through me my Father does all things, right? Your I am, right? So it's kind of this journey. I think it just keeps happening, just keep radiating out. There's another story, narcissies, right? So you hear a lot of people calling each other narcissists and things like that. I would be very aware of what titles you call other people, because it reflects right back at us. Right. And usually if we tend to have strong feelings towards a particular personality type that we don't like or whatever, or we're very judgmental of, there's a difference between, in my opinion, observation and judgment, and I can tell by how it feels, right? You know, if I see a baby walking around and like trips or something, and I just see the baby trip, see a baby tripping, learning how to walk, right? If I start condemning the baby in my head, that's reflecting back to me something, some kind of fears I have, some kind of judgments that I have that don't serve me. You know, if I was walking around and finding a whole bunch of flawed people out there in the world all the time, then that would actually be, I'm not going to go into those because there's so many different things. I would say what I do is I pay attention to my judgments to the best of my ability. And when I see one, I say, okay, love, come in, show me what this is. And it's all sorts of things. Usually, if I'm judging someone, it could be that they're portraying characteristics that I don't like about myself, or characteristics that I didn't like about myself that I either am in the process of transcending or have recently transcended and haven't cleared out of my subconscious the desire to compare myself to others and indicate my success level by seeing how much better it is than someone else. There's a whole bunch of different things. But the more we gain access and understanding of where we sit in between the created and the creator, and the more we clear out our old baggage, habits, we clean out our old baggage and misperceptions of what the source of our being is, about it being judgmental or jealous or angry or any of those things, the more access we get to just truth, right? Jesus said, I'll give you the spirit of truth, and it's just able to give you the answers. It's really, really cool. So we have the dog and his reflection. So we have Narcissus. And Narcissus, basic story of Narcissus, Greek mythology, is he fell in love with his reflection. And when you look at a reflection is a two-dimensional image of your physical body. And this is fascinating because the difference between 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions is huge for perspectives. One could argue it's actually crazy as it sounds that there's an infinite amount of space in between the 2nd dimension and the 3rd dimension and so on and so forth, right? But without going too crazy into that, it's massive, the difference between 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. And what's even more cool is, so you have Narcissus, and he's in a real world, right? And everything he needs is in that world. And he falls in love with the reflection and doesn't acknowledge. Now, he could still love the reflection. It's not just that he got attached to his reflection. It's that he got attached to only his reflection and eventually ignored the world he was in, his real world, and he died, right? There's also another story of Echo. And Echo fell in love with Narcissus. But anyways, the whole point of Echo is her curse was that she could only repeat back to other people the last word they said. And it's really fascinating because I wonder how many people live their lives hearing echoes. and thinking that that's their thoughts or all that they are. Right? And yesterday we talked about kind of loving yourself, right? So when you can't really love, you can't give love to something without denominating first, and after denominating and characterizing something, then you can form a relationship with it, and love will manifest itself between the two of you. And so we talked about before that ultimately everything is love, but there's what I call perfect love, and it's just, the good feeling, agape, brotherly love, how we'd see love, right? And then it could be twisted and not feel so nice. But regardless, it's always gonna, whatever quality of love that you're giving to something else, rest assured, it is automatic. It's karmic. It goes through you first, right? And then it reverberates back at you. Like a double dose of it. So when you send out, whenever you send out whenever you choose to channel love, you get a double dose of the quality of that love. And this goes in every direction. So when you love God first with all your heart and all your might, you're loving your source of being. And so the way that you see that, and so you in the center, in this etheric realm, what do you actually do? You see things. That's how you create. You see things and you interpret things, and then you color them. That's really how you create. Someone says, well, I picked up a paintbrush and I painted. Rest assured that was all just perspective and ideas and thoughts and beliefs manifested out in the material world. Right? So I'll give an example for that afterwards. So there's so many different directions that you send your love out to. So first, to simplify it, right? You have the three. You have your body, personality, right? Who most people just think that they're out of that. Think about what most people think they are, right? And that's one part of you, right? That's Bob. He's walking around in his body. He has ideas and he has a brain. That's Bob, right? Okay, well, Bob actually is a creation, right? And then there's the source of being, the 0 point, that is the thing that gives life to Bob, right? And yes, you are being Bob, so Bob is a part of you, right? Just like up would be a part of you if you were climbing. But also, you are the thing that created Bob, flows through you, so the creator is a part of you. And then the frequency is you, the Christ, the I am, right in the middle there, right? And Bob is a created. It's the most defined, limited, needy aspect of yourself. And then the creator is your energy, which is the least needy, the least limited, least defined. It's unconditional, all at its very, 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 very core. And you call it forth, right? And how do you do that? You do that by seeing things and interpreting things and believing things and thinking things, and that changes everything, right? So here's the crazy part. So you sitting in between Bob and your creator, right? How you see Bob, and this is in the present moment, and then there's past and future. It's pretty cool, man. How you see Bob right now affects Bob, right? But Bob is the created. Bob cannot change himself. So whatever you believe about Bob, Bob is going to do. Any judgments you hold against Bob is going to reflect back to you. You're going to feel the energy moving back from Bob towards you. So every time you're hard on yourself, oh boy, man, being hard on yourself has so many repercussions to all different aspects of yourself. And then those come back to you. It's crazy, right? So for example, if you're like, oh, why did I do that? I'm such an idiot. Wow. Okay. So now what you just did is, it's funny because the part of you that's the created will always be more towards the past, right? So when you're in the present moment, you're in between possibility, the creator, the new, and the unknown. and the known, which is what was manifest. So when you're looking out at the world, like let's say something like you can't be hard on yourself for something that hasn't actually transpired yet. Even if you're supposed to be doing the dishes and you're not doing the dishes. When you look at that energy, it's you're actually sending it's to what you've done up until now. And what you've done up until now can't change itself. But so you're aiming it at that part of yourself, that weaker part of yourself. Oh, what an idiot. Now you have to think about it. Like when you say, I'm such an idiot. You have to think about it. You're forming a relationship right there, which means whether you're aware of it or not, you've already denominated and separated it from yourself as a part of you. Right? And it's a part of you that can't change itself. But what it can do is it can echo back to you. And this is where karma comes from, right? Oh boy. So every time that you have you ever wondered when you have the devil in your ear? Right? You have the devil in your ear, it's saying you're not good enough, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You ever notice, at least for most people, it's in your own voice. It's an echo from all of the thoughts that you allowed to be projected onto yourself in all of those other present moments. And they build up. And they talk back to you. And they literally cannot change themselves. Because every time you say, I'm such an idiot. Right there, you've just denominated and separated it from you. And then you called it an idiot. Right? And even though you said that in that moment, it's probably safe to assume that you don't think of yourself as a 100% idiot. So you fractured a piece of yourself. You separated it from you. You threw hate at it. So the hate will just continue to come back at you. And it will seem like it's anxiety or something. It may even seem like an oppositional force. It's you. Everything it's saying to you, you said it. It's just saying it back to you. It's a parrot. It's dead. But ultimately, you in your present moment knows deep down inside that you're the one who said those words. It knows it's you. Judge not, lest ye be judged. By an equal measure shall ye be judged. So every condemnation you throw at it is bouncing back at you. That's why we forgive. Give before. Give without an expectation of anything in return, because you are the only one who can diffuse that, and it's walking into your karma. You know, it's part of you. Now, here's the challenging thing. This is very hard for a lot of people to do something like this because they still don't realize what they are. They have overly identified with Bob. But Bob is a creation. So now, in order for the transformation to come, Einstein said, don't use the mind that created the problem to solve it. Don't do the same thing over expecting different results. How could you fix it? How can a flat tire fix itself? So in order for change to happen, you know, we need that people will need to find something that seems greater than themselves, than Bob. This is why you get people going after so many self-help books and things like that. Tell me how to live. Right? You know, if you look at most self-help books, a lot of the advice that they give in a self-help book, most people know. So like, hey man, you know, when you get up in the morning, do the right thing, right? Do your chores when you're supposed to. You know, be happy. Do positive, think positive, right? Blah, 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 blah. The things in all of them are all easy, right? And I read this statistic once about self-help books. Don't quote me on it, but it was some crazy amount of how many people fall off the wagon, like from self-help books. Like they read them, they get really excited, they start following it for a little while, and then because they're unable to transcend the actual self, many of them they end up buying another self-help book. I actually know someone personally, I won't mention them in here, but that literally, and they were always trying to get me to read them. So many self-help books over and 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 over, and they would always get really excited about them. But I would like read it. I'm like, it's not, and the person would be like, oh, I'm so successful because I did this. It's kind of like, in my opinion, it's like, we know what to do. If someone's not doing it, it's because they don't know how they can make themselves do it. And, for me, cut out the middleman, right? Let's get to the root. Let's really understand where our power lies and know thyself, right? So yeah, Bob. So the first thing is really kind of transcending the self, right? And it's really fascinating. When I first woke up, this is crazy because I was always considered an overthinker. I always asked a lot of questions, and one would have been able to easily say and have other people who knew me agree that I was always a very open-minded person, relatively speaking. But it wasn't until when I first woke up that I actually heard my own thought. And say, what? I know it sounds weird. I remember the day I was driving and I was like, whoa. So it wasn't so much that I heard the thought. I heard the thought, right? So I was always an overthinker when I was younger, but my thoughts thought me. It's kind of like they were playing out a video in front of me that seemed very real to me. And, sometimes I'd ask questions, and that's how I would actually connect with my creators, when I'd be like, why is this? And then the answer would come, and I didn't know what was happening, right? But basically, my thoughts thought me. And then one day I was like, whoa, I actually saw the thought as a thought. Almost like hearing someone in another room say something. And it was very different than the power the thoughts once held over me. It was like hearing. It would be like if you walked into imagine like some of the thoughts that we can have, right? It could be like, oh man, I'm not good enough. Oh, maybe they don't say that detail, but it's like, oh, I got to go to this thing later. Oh my God, this is gonna suck. Oh man, my boss is gonna call me. Oh, I know I messed up on this thing. What am I gonna do? Oh my God, I should feel bad. Blah 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 blah. Right? There's a weight to those in the way that I used to think them. They owned me. They possessed me. And in that moment when I heard that first one, it was the difference between that, what I try to describe to you guys, right? Attempt to describe to you guys. And when I first, quote unquote, heard it was, instead of being like that, it would be like if I walked into a cafeteria and I walked by someone and they're like, oh, my boss has to talk to me. And then I walk by another person and they're like, oh my God, I made a mistake. And then another person said, oh my God, it's going to rain tomorrow. They were just words from people talking. They didn't possess me. And I was like, wow. And I was like, what? That was really fascinating. And of course, it's taken me 4 years of really intensive, very vigilant, basically obsession with being aware of myself to get to the point that I'm at now, where it's amazing. My mind, and I still catch them, right? Like something will, I'll still have thoughts that were thinking, quote unquote, thinking me. And then I hear it. I'm like, And it's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, why? I don't know. Because I don't like it. Why don't we like it? I don't know, man. You programmed it into me. I'm just repeating back to you what you said sometime a long time ago. Oh, all right. Well, let me think. And then I turn to the creator within me. And I'm like, does it serve me to hold the belief paradigms that support the idea that I should not deserve to feel good while I'm doing something that I want to have done? No. Okay, can we change it? Yes. And it just changes. They become my tools, my ingredients. It's like cooking in the kitchen, right? It's like, I taste it, make some cinnamon muffins or something. I'm like, could use a little bit more cinnamon. But imagine trying to make muffins and the ingredients keep jumping out of the shelves and pouring themselves into your bowl of their own accord. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't make my food I want, right? It's like my thoughts became like ingredients that I get to decide what I pull. And it's taken some significant work to get there. So there's, when you love yourself, there is loving, like, yeah, your present self, your body right now, right? And being aware. But also, it's your duty where you are to, hold on one second, I'm a cack, you know. All right. So you have your past self. So just when you start to transcend the personality, you don't necessarily have to hate it or anything like that, because that's the danger too, I think, in like really doing the I gotta kill the ego type thing. Where do you think all those thoughts came from? I am what was, I am what is, I am what will be. And the texture and the energy and the level of judgment that you send at that thing that is you just bounces back at you. That's what anxiety is, you know? So it's about it. Like, I found it's embracing it, man. You know, having patience, acceptance, right? You can accept it because you know it's you that put them there. And so accept also the idea that you put them there for a reason. You don't even have to get super spiritual about it. You know, look at it very simply. I put those there because that helped protect me then. What got me out of Egypt doesn't get me out of the promised land. I can't put new wine into old wineskins. Don't sew a new patch onto an old garment with a tear. It'll just continue to tear. You know, that was then, this is now. All right? That's it. And thank it, forgive it, appreciate it, because you wouldn't be here right now. And there's so much wisdom that you have right now in your life that you wouldn't have had from all the mistakes you made. Right? But sometimes we forget that the mistakes were made so we could learn a lesson from them on how to live a better life. But because we've judged the mistake, it never healed. We separated it from ourselves. We condemned it. And that anxiety that you feel and those intrusive thoughts that you feel, it's the karma, because you've separated that part of yourself from yourself. You know, and you don't have to know how. I mean, I think understanding things like this might be a little helpful. Look at it simply like, you know, you don't have, you do it just because you just love it, man. What else? That's what we're here for, I think. I mean, that's what I'm here for. That's what I've chosen, to give love. I just didn't know how to love myself. And when I realized this stuff, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So now I can have a relationship with myself. It's not just about buying myself new shoes. You know what I mean? There's so many different directions I can love. And I can choose to give love to my past self. All right. And the same thing goes for my future self. You know, because I'm all three, right? Future self, I'm not doing the dishes. Like, let's say I don't want to do the dishes, right? I'm not just doing the dishes because I need to have them done. It's one more opportunity for me to give love to another being, future me. And so it's a different feeling when I'm doing it for future me. It's a very, very different feeling that we get when we do something because we think we need to, or simply because we're giving love to it. It's a very, very different feeling. Now, so you have past you have future you have present you, right? Now, there's two other, so those are like the more intimate aspects of yourself, right? And then there's two, now, so there's that, right? So that there's a trinity. You can almost look at it as a horizontal line trinity, past, present, future, personality, you, right? Now, here's what's weird. So now, so think about it like I'm making a cross, okay? So on the horizontal line, to the left is past you, to the right is future you, in the middle is present you, right? Now what's crazy is that line becomes the center, like that center, now you make a vertical line, and you could say, on the, doesn't matter which direction you put it, on the bottom is your creator, and on the top line, come here, buddy. on the top line is your creation, right? Your world, right? So the creator is like, so you have your personality, your past, present, future you, right? And then you're intersected with the bigger you, right? This is a very, very simple way of saying it. I'm doing my best here. It's bigger than this, but so your creator, which would be like kind of, it's the best way to say this. It just created the source of your world, you and your world, right? Jesus said, "For he who looks upon the world and sees a body, for him the world isn't worthy." When you know what's in front of your face, it's your own self will be known. If you do, all that is hidden becomes manifest. If you do not come to know yourself, you will live in poverty because you will be the poverty. So your outer world is just as much a part of you as your inner world right. It just says the creator is just as much a part of you as your whole outer world is. But the center of those two is going to be you, your personality matrix presently, right? And so what you're going to need, what's very, very, very important for all of this is you need transformative juices. You need some love power. You need that change power. Isaiah, do you see I bring all things new? Do you not perceive it? Right? You need to tap into that transformative love juices, right? And that's why, like we said yesterday, Jesus said, love God first with all your heart, with all your might. And one of the easier ways to do that is to stop seeing, if you have, seeing God as a tyrant. Because you remember, at that center, the way that you create is by what you see and what you interpret, the colors and flavors, the energies that flow through you and manifest. And that's the more like unto the creator we become, the more we operate from this realm of like super feelings, not just like sad or happy or anything like that. It's like it's feeling work because it's so big you can't even compress it down into a logical thing very easily. So it's just energy work that you do. You can feel it. You're like, oh, energy, go here, divert it here, right? And so you can feel the texture and the flavor of how you're perceiving something. So if you want to, have the most transformation in your life, it's going to require. Hold on, the cat kept meowing to come in, and now he's meowing to go out. 1 second. All right. What was I saying? So if you want to make the most transformation in your life, all right, you're going to need to create. You're going to need a lot of creating going on, right? So I would say that I think some of the most important things is to realize, you know what? That's right. I can't be just this personality. I can't be just this body, because the body and the personality has been changing my whole life. And there's been one common, right? We talked about denominate. There's been one common denominator that has been present your whole life. Your body has changed. Are you in the same body you were as a baby? No. Are you in the same body that you were in as a toddler? No. Are you in the same body that you were as a teenager? No. Unless you're a teenager listening to this. Are you in the same body as when you were 20? If you're older than 20? No. The body's regenerated itself countless times as long as you've been alive. So you are more than the body. You must be more than the body, right? Well, what about the personality? Well, what is the personality? Your values, your beliefs, your intentions, your actions. Your values, beliefs, thoughts, and your feelings, right? Well, is it safe to say that your thoughts, your feelings, your values, and beliefs have changed over time? Yes, they have, right? So that means your personality has changed. What about your abilities? Are there things you can do that you couldn't do before? Okay, so your abilities have changed, what you can do and what you cannot do. So virtually, really massive things have changed your whole life. Different body, different personality, different abilities, different perspectives, different desires. Right, so you've been changing the whole time. If I were to ask you then, well, if it's not those things that define who you are, what's the one common denominator? The one common namer, the one common denominator. There's only one answer you can give me. What's the one thing that's been with you your whole life? And the one thing, if I removed it, none of them would exist. The one common denominator. The only answer you could give me is, I am. Right? Really allow that to soak through your being. And say, wow, I must transcend. Jesus said, in the world you find tribulation. Be of good cheer. I have transcended the world. I am in it, in the center, but I am not of it. See, Up until, for many people, they still live their lives. I'm Bob. I was born of the world. No. Sorry. Just not how it works. Didn't work that way. What you are is eternal, actually. But you are being that which was born. The I am of you was being that which was born. You don't have to go that deep into it, but at the very least, start entertaining the idea that you transcend the body. It gives you some space to actually start initiating change, right? So now imagine that trinity, right? So now you've gone from this outer self to the center, right? You got a line, there's 3 points, 3 circles on the line, one in the North Pole, South Pole, and the center, right? All right, so this is me in the center. That, for whatever, just for the sake of imagination, that top one is Bob, right? Me, Bob, whatever I am. And then the south will be like the creator. And you're constantly drawing in, right? And so once you start putting that distance in between there, now you can start actually hearing the thoughts and have a relationship with Bob. Right? And then, of course, Bob, I'm telling you, that's why when I say multidimensional, guys, imagine like seeing this and trying to put words to it. That's easy, so it doesn't get confusing either, right? Right? So, but all you have to really worry about is put some distance there and some understanding. Once you get that, the Bible says of all things get you wisdom and understanding. It's really true. When you get an understanding, it changes everything. An apple tree understands itself to be it's an I am that understands itself to be an apple tree. So it just produces fruit like an apple tree because it's being an apple tree. That's it. It understands itself to be an apple tree, so it's an apple tree. That's all those molecules, same molecules that make up everything else. It's just the I am saying I'm an apple tree, and so all of them take the form and the shape of an apple tree and behave like an apple tree. Intent, action, reaction, responsibility, ability to respond. That's what it is. So as you change your perspective of yourself, by transcending the old perspective of yourself, you become more powerful. And eventually you can actually start seeing what you can do in your outer world, which is a whole nother story. But for now, we really want to get control of our own feelings and thoughts. And we do it through love, right? So now that you put some space in between you and Bob, now you also know that you have the creator, right? And so the creator flows through you, that source of love. There's actually a different way that this all could be looked at, but for now, we're going to keep it this way. So that source of love is just think about it like it's in your heart. The creator is in your heart. And so what this means is just like how you see Bob radiates back out to you. Yeah, right. So like how you see yourself in the present moment radiates back to you in the present moment, right? But in the present moment, what you are doing or not doing in your how you see your future self actually balances out to the future self and bounces back to you. And that can give you like guilt, shame, feelings like that. You know what I mean? Because if you're projecting worried on your future self, they actually bounce back to you right now. Weird. But also simultaneously, all of the judgments that you've made to your past self, those have gone out, they're going out to your past self, and then all of them that you've stored up in there are bouncing back at you. And so there's a lot of noise. And people have so much noise and have had it for so long, they don't even realize they don't even realize how much they're suffering, because it's just they've known it forever. It's just chaos, right? As you get moments of silence, you might sometimes be like, whoa, I didn't know what I had until I lost it, right? So what we're going to want to do is really start understanding the importance of the fact that you transcend the personality, you transcend the future self, you transcend the past self, right? But they are intimately connected to you and a part of you in the way that you view them, and the perspectives that you send towards them are going to bounce back immediately in the only time that you ever experience, which is the now, and cause you either discord or harmony, right? So now the issue is, though, you need to change things. So how are you going to change things? Well, to change things, you're going to want access to a source that creates and that is selfless and powerful. But the thing is the way that you view that source. Don't put any other gods before me, blah, blah, blah. Don't worship false idols, right? An idol is an image, right? So you want to clear the channel that you have to your source so that it can be an immaculate conception, not colored or disturbed in any way when you try to draw it. So the other thing that we want to do is not only change our perspectives to one of love for, present Bob, future Bob, and past Bob, because it's all radiating back to you now. And eventually we'll get onto the fact that it's the same thing with your outer world. But for now, let's stick with that. And then we need to get you access to more power, right? So it's about reconfiguring your idea of that power of love. And so don't take my word for it. Ask it to show you. Say, creator source within me, the thing that has given me life for free. Give me understanding, give me clarity, give me wisdom onto, how I can form a relationship with you that is for the greatest good for all parts of me and in my world. Show me whatever it is that I need to know now. And the beautiful thing is, love always meets you where you're at. It's just how it works. It will always meet you where you're at, right? And so long as you don't have any filters or things that distorts it when the message is coming to you, it will always meet you. It's graceful, it's tender, it's patient, it's kind, and it will help you through the process, and it will give you the information that you need when you need it, right? And the beautiful thing is as you grow in that, eventually, we can't really help it. As that heals us, like, we are like compelled to go out and radiate that same love to others. And it's really remarkable. Like, you can just tune into someone's frequency when they're talking, and love will know where they're at without you even having to care. Like, not care, but without you even having to know, and it will just say what the person needs to hear, and you don't even have to think about it, right? Love will, like, the unconditional, true, pure love that gives you life will always meet you where you're at, right? So, in closing here, I know this one has been kind of a choppy one for me to explain. I want to get into some things that I'm still working through expressing in a way that is palatable for what I believe my listeners will enjoy. So just remember this: everything is bouncing back at you. Everything, and you don't have to worry about the outer world just yet. I mean, that's at least not for this podcast, but it's so important to realize that. Remember, any of the anxiety that you have coming to you, it's either coming from one of two directions. It's either you have projected into your future worries, uncertainties, and doubts, and you sent them, so the present you in the past sent them out to the future, and so now you're receiving those, which is really weird, right? Or another way to look at it is you in the present moment are sending worries, uncertainties, and doubt out to your future self, and they're bouncing back to you now, right? Or there's something that you could be doing for your future self, and you're choosing not to do it because you have fears or something like that. You're just, the flavor of love that you're giving your future self, whatever that flavor is, it's bouncing back at you. Just how it works, right? Same thing with the past self. Every time you've ever condemned anything about yourself, you've condemned your past self, right? And all of that is basically echoing needs to be killed. You need to take ownership for it and say, well, who else put those there? I did. Why did I put them there? Did I put them there because I'm an idiot? No, I put them there because they created an experience for me, and I did it so I can learn and grow and expand, right? If you don't know why you did it, ask yourself, ask the creator within you. Say, show me how I can reconcile this in such a way that I can learn from it, grow from it, appreciate it without judging it, but still also learn and grow, and it will give you the answer, right? So we want to form a relationship. We got our past self, present self, future self. Remember, whatever energy you send at them, it's coming right back at you. You're the only one who's ever going to experience it, because you are what is, what was, and what will be, right? But also, key is clearing your understanding of that power within you. Because if you see it as a judgmental God, then all of the energy that you can get for transformation and power for your life and the creation in the future of your life will be colored and flavored by that perspective. That's how you create, with what you choose to see, right? You denominate it, you name it, it takes on those characteristics. Why? So that's how love, pure unconditional love that is the source of your being, could be a tyrant God, or could be a tyrant person, or could be a loving person. It's up to you. It will take on the form and the characteristics of what you choose to see it as. And that's how you open all the channels. But anyways, that's enough. I'll see you guys soon.